Welcome all to the Snail Trail 4x4 podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping in Toyotas, and maybe even poking a little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, hearing about how fantastic public lands are in Toyotas, then this is the podcast for you. That's right, ladies and germs. Welcome to episode 335 of the Snail Trail 4x4 podcast. Once again in the Snail Trail studio with the one and only Mr. Jimmy Jett and Tyler Larson. How are you, Tyler?
Are you speaking in third person now? What's going on?
No. I was trying to be Jimmy Jett today.
Oh, it's hard. That's a tough shoes to fill right there.
They are tough. They're pretty small.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Oh, man. How you doing, buddy?
They were small flippers, that's for sure. I'm good. Life's going well. It was a fun weekend. We'll talk about that at another point. But, it didn't do a whole lot of off-road stuff, but did some good family things. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was kind of the same. I'm still waiting on parts. So waiting on parts. We'll get an update on all of that on Monday's episode. Sorry, I guess the roof is caving in.
Yeah, somebody's jumping around up there.
So the updates on axle parts and axle build on Monday. So really all I did, just to keep it kind of nice, short and sweet, because we have a different topic to get into today. So Battery Ryan,
okay,
who we've had on the podcast before, talking about myths about emissions in I guess the world,
sure,
and
right.
batteries as well. We got into batteries as well with him. So battery technology. He got married a year ago.
Yes, yeah, he did.
He was not able to have a ceremony, and they've tried to have a ceremony. This was their third attempt.
Oh my gosh.
Because the first time got shut down due to COVID. Second time got shut down due to the Caldor fire.
Oh, and this so
this was their third attempt. And they had it.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they had the ceremony. So
yay.
Ryan and Stephanie, congratulations to you two.
Even though you've been married for a year now, probably.
Exactly. That was kind of an ongoing joke throughout their ceremony that they had. So so I was up there hanging out, and it was a lot of fun. And then Sunday, I got to start helping build an antenna for ham radio.
Boring.
No way. It's called a Step IR antenna, and it's a really fancy antenna that has motors on it. So it will adjust its antenna SWR and the antenna length of the antenna automatically.
Oh.
Based on whatever frequency you're operating on.
Interesting.
So you kind of just have one big ass antenna and it does everything for you. You don't have to guess and figure out what you need to have amplifiers tuned to or anything. And these are this is designed for the frequencies HF that bounces in the atmosphere and goes all around the world. And you're running 1500 watts, 1.5 kilowatts on.
Wow.
Really fancy antenna. We got to start building it. It's actually pretty impressive the way they designed it and set it all up. We won't get into it. If people have questions about that, if you're a ham nerd or electronic nerd or an RF nerd, message me. I'll let you know how it works.
Cool. Yeah.
That was pretty much my weekend though. I'm just waiting on parts. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I've had a lot of really cool questions come in.
Nice. And I think we'll cover those in an upcoming episode here.
Yep.
But we do have kind of a different interview for us.
We do.
Mm-hmm. How should we say this?
I don't like to give these guys a lot of credit.
No.
Because honestly, they already can't fit through doorways because their heads are too big.
Right. Yeah. However, Jason and Chris did do a phenomenal episode with BlueRibbon Coalition.
I don't think it was really Jason and Chris.
Okay.
It was
Ben
really,
did a great job at
Ben and Chelsey.
Ben and Chelsey did a good job at directing Chris and Jason on how to do a good episode.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we also feel that, the episode was great and it's very timely on what's going on right now in Moab. And we've been trying to get a hold of Ben and work with Ben to do an episode with him, but just due to the time restraint that we're in and how necessary it is, pretty much a week from today, you guys will have to go and fill out the forms if you haven't done it already. So we wanted to air this episode because they did a great job. And they do an excellent job on discussing the topics and telling you guys where to go. Yeah,
100%. I have some comments about the episode. which I'd like to kind of reiterate after we air the interview here.
Okay.
Because they're really, really important key takeaways. There's a lot of information that's about to come to you guys. And it's all very, very encouraging. I learned some new stuff. I don't think we could have done the episode any better.
Right.
or added anything else. So we're like, you know what? Let's just take the episode, air it on Snail Trail 4x4 as well, the interview. And that way it gets the information out there. And then we're actually going to be hooking up with Ben a little bit later on down the road here to talk a little bit more about land management processes and how all that works. Yeah, that's all. Let's jump into it, shall we?
Yeah. We'll jump into it and we'll be back at the end.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, Chris, we are here with a bonus episode for the podcast. We are in a legal battle right now and wanted to get the word out. So actually, Chelsey from the Trail Hunter on IG reached out to me and says, hey, would you guys be willing to do a podcast with the Blue Ribbon Coalition to get the word out about what's going on in Moab? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So here we are. So Chelsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for reaching out and making this happen. And then we have Ben, who's the executive director from the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right on. So let's get a quick little update of who you guys are. So why don't you start, Chelsey?
Sure.
Yeah. How'd you get involved with this whole operation?
Yeah. So I haven't been in the industry for very long. It's really only been like 3 years. But I have a Jeep. Most people know me as my big orange bus that we throw the Jeep on the back. I have YouTube and Instagram, Trail Hunter. And then Ben's just recently hired me on as like the marketing for Blue Ribbon Coalition. Just kind of like a storyteller, let people know what's out there, bring awareness to all this stuff that's going on.
Perfect. For sure. Yeah, that's great. And you're definitely familiar with social media, so that's going to be exciting to get get some reels and some posts going and get people excited about fighting for our lands here.
Yes.
Right on.
It's so important.
Yeah, congrats to that new position there. And then Ben, what is your background? How did you get involved with the Blue Ribbon Coalition?
Yeah, thanks. And it's great to have Chelsey. We definitely want as much help with the marketing as we can get. With these fights, we just got to get the word out is the biggest challenge.
Sure.
I started working at Blue Ribbon Coalition back in 2019. I'd recently left working for Senator Mike Lee's office in Washington, D.C. I'd been in Washington for 7 years, getting upfront and personal with the political system that we have and that manages these lands. And I got hired as the policy director in 2019. And then last summer, I was made the executive director. And we've been rolling ever since. We got a lot of work in the works. And this fight in Moab is one of the biggest ones, one of our biggest projects. And so we need to get everyone in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's cool. Well, welcome both of you. So yeah, without further ado, let's just dive into this and what's going on at Moab and how can we help? How can off-roaders?
How can we spread the word?
Yeah, get this info out.
So there are 437 miles of trails that are being proposed for closure in different variations of a plan that the Moab BLM has put forward in the Labyrinth Rim Gemini Bridges area. This is basically anything north of Moab, west of the highway, all the way to Green River.
Wow.
And so anything out there west of the highway, if you've done any of those trails, these are at risk. This is all part of a legal settlement with some wilderness groups. Back in 2008, they challenged the BLM's travel plans, and as part of a legal settlement, they've required the BLM to look at over 10,000 miles of roads and trails in Utah. It's a process that is taking what we expect to take at least 10 years.
Okay.
And we're right in the middle of it. This Moab one we've been expecting it for months now. They've released it. There are a lot of popular trails proposed for closure. There's a lot of not popular trails that are some of the best ones out there from our field.
Yeah.
And so we just need the community to understand what's happening, what role they can play to prevent this, And there's a lot of important work everybody can do to make sure we don't get these trails closed.
Yeah, for sure. I unfortunately, I'm all too familiar with this. I've been in the off-road game for over 30 years now, and we have lost some trails here in California.
Absolutely.
That these people that have, even in the past 10, 15 years that joined our club or just got into four-wheeling have no clue that these trails ever existed.
Yeah.
Argo Trail is one of them that comes to mind. But anyways, yeah, so this is, not that it flies under the radar, especially nowadays with all the social media and everything. And I guess that's where you come in too. Now, Chelsey, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting that word out, and how, if there's a lot to digest, right, Ben? There's so many nuances and everything. And that's where, the Blue Ribbon Coalition helps simplify and give the end user some cliff notes, if you will, of like, okay, what letter do I need to send? Where do I need to send it? Who do I need to contact? How do I get my voice heard? That I want to continue running these trails. I want my kids to continue running these trails. And my grandkids running these trails, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we were out there.
No, I think you guys would be shocked. When Ben and I went out there, and like spreading the word and everything, but you don't really realize until you're out there and you see what's happening. And then you're like, holy crap, this is real. This is actually going to happen if we don't step up and say something and do something about it. So
you were out there just last weekend, Chelsey?
Yeah, but both Ben and I, we were there Friday and Saturday. Yeah. Yeah. And we went on these trails and we documented them, filmed them, took a lot of pictures for a lot of research that we're going to do. At one point, actually, I think it was the first trail that Ben showed me that was going to close. So we're just driving along on this big trail, right, in this canyon, and then all of a sudden he stops and he was like, right here, and I was like, where
right here,
where is that? I'm looking around, where's the trail that's going to close? And he's like, we're on it. And I was like, what? Gosh. I was literally mind blown because it was so beautiful, so well maintained. It was graded, it was there was no trash lane that wasn't overgrown. It was insane. I was shocked.
No evidence of people leaving the trail. People have been responsibly, but this trail that's graded all the way up the canyon, you get to halfway up and it just stops. And they said, well, from here on, we're going to close it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's for wildlife reasons related to bighorn sheep. But I don't think that the occasional vehicle that goes up this trail from time to time is the biggest threat to the bighorn sheep in that area. So those are the kinds of things that we'll be analyzing in our analysis of this comment. And you mentioned that we make this easy for people to get engaged. And so we have a page on our site, sharetrails.org, where you can go and submit a comment to the BLM. You could do it in as quick as 2 or 3 minutes because we have form language there that you can use. The BLM doesn't love receiving that form language. I still think if you should send a form comment over not sending anything at all.
Sure.
But part of what I was trying to teach Chelsey on this first trip out into the field, doing this field work and ground truthing is what we call it, is that we can model to the users that this is what we need from you.
Yeah.
And so, Chelsey, why don't you tell them some of the people we ran into while we were out exploring the Labyrinth Rim Gemini Bridges area?
Oh, sure. Well, honestly, there wasn't a lot of people, which is kind of strange because we were there on a weekend, and when I think of Moab, I think of EJS, where it's crawling with people. Yeah. Right. And so, And so for the BLM or whoever to say oh, this trail has been used, there's 100 people on it a day. It's just simply not true. But while we were there, we met a couple who was kind of overlanding in their van off a trail that was going to be closed. And, we kind of went up to them and we're like, we're friendly, we just want to let you know that this campsite's going to be closed. And the man is a man and a woman and their little dachshund dog. And he was like, what? Tell me more, because this is my favorite spot. I come here all the time.
Wow.
And he's like, if you go up on this rock, we were watching the thunder in the background or the lightning in the background. And, and he had memories there. And that's just another eye-opening experience for me personally that why are they like, why, what's the point? Why are they doing this? And so we really talked with him and let him know, you can do this and you can do this to help fight it. And he was like gung ho, like, I'm going to go do this. And that's just one person we met. We met other people too. I don't know if you want to dig into that.
Chelsey, because I want to talk a little bit about him, because so many the wilderness groups have done a really good job of making the public believe there's just legions of side-by-sides and Jeeps out there tearing the place up all the time. That wasn't our experience.
No, not at all.
It was a man and a partner, like a couple with their dog, camping out of a minivan off the side of the road next to a fire ring. And that's who was going to get hurt by this as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
And I strongly encouraged him to submit his comment through the BRC page, because when you submit it through our form, we get a record of that.
Okay.
And we see that someone from the public is saying, this is my spot. This is where I love to go. This is where I have memories with my dad or my kids or whatever. Those are the kinds of things we want to refer back to when we have to establish our legal standing to challenge any closure in court.
Right.
We have to prove that we have users that use these areas, that have plans to use these areas in the future. That's when we lose, it's because they say we don't have a strong enough case that we've identified users who really want to use that trail or that area.
Right.
I have found that in a lot of cases, their reasons are kind of illogical in some regards, or they're throwing darts or whatever. I mean, it's like I know I went to your website and I found who is fighting to close those lands, those trails, and it's a lot of the things they say in there is noise, and they want it to be quiet for the people that recreate in those areas. And I'm like, I get it. You guys want to go out there and hike and eat your granola bars or whatever it is that you do. But, at the same time, these are public lands and they're supposed to be available for everybody to use. Now, there are tons and tons of trails out there that are not, that are only for hiking and for horseback riding, non-motorized. I mean, right up here in California, for example, you look at Desolation Valley. That is a beautiful area to go hiking. I've gone hiking and camping up there for a lot. And there's no motorized recreating in that at all. And I mean, they just can't be satisfied with their areas. They need to go and attack all the other areas too. And that's very frustrating for us.
Yeah, this is one of the last remaining areas in that Moab area that is truly multiple use.
Yeah.
They have 2 big national parks, multiple wilderness areas. They just created 600,000 acres of wilderness just across the river from this area. And so if you want that solitude and that quiet experience, I was on the radio show, the more liberal-leaning radio show in Moab yesterday. And they asked me about this, and I said, I value going out and finding solitude and quiet too.
We all do.
All users do. That's part of the value of this. But I've never been able to not find it.
Right.
Especially in this area. There are so many places you can go. This is the last multiple use area where they've really tried to manage and accommodate all uses, and now they're pulling the rug out from under that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that seems to be one of their tactics is to, what do you say, bighorn sheep. I mean, out in California, it's some sort of salamander or a frog or
red-legged
a moth
frog
or some whatever, or a weed, I mean, I get it. I mean, there's always going to be something that they can target that's going to be endangered or potentially damaged as far as plant life. I know personally, I've never been to Moab. It's on my bucket list to go wheeling there. But I know Jason has tons of experience to be out there. And one of the things, and that he can speak to it, is this plant life that is off to the side of a lot of trail. What is it?
Cryptobiotic soil?
Right.
Yeah.
Cryptobiotic soil, yeah.
Yeah, and that's my experience is most of that's intact. Like, anytime I ride around the deserts of Utah, I find thousands and thousands of acres of untouched cryptobiotic soil. Like,
we saw some.
It's really all over the place.
Yeah.
It's really like you might, within the disturbance corridor of a route, it's going to have a hard time establishing itself. But most of these areas, the actual disturbance created by the travel management plan is less than 1% of the actual area. These landscapes are so vast.
Right.
And most of them are untouched, wild, backcountry lands. And those concerns just I don't think they hold up to scientific scrutiny. They like to find the studies that do that. As you said, I mean, they really can look at any sort of animal or vegetation or anything and try and make the case. And my counter to any of that is there's always going to be a management solution.
Absolutely.
Besides the closure to mitigate that environmental concern. And this Moab Build Office has done a good job. We saw a lot of signs saying behave this way in the bighorn sheep habitat. This area is rehabilitating for vegetation. They've barricaded things off. There are signs everywhere you go. They've designated dispersed campsites to prevent proliferation. They manage this area, and that's what we want to see them continue to do. There's so much desire to see this area get used by everybody, and you get all the groups that tread lightly, like your organization, that come and volunteer a lot. A lot of that signage and educational material was done by volunteers from the off-road community.
Correct.
And we'll keep doing more and more of that to make a well-managed area that can accommodate as many people as possible.
Yeah, and on that trail that we were on too, there's bathrooms there, there's trash cans, there's stuff that's already there that they've put there for you to use. And then they just want to go and close it and just say, whatever.
Well, in a lot of cases, they glom onto those bad eggs, and every group or every organization or every outing, there's always going to be that 1 or 2% of people that are going to be jerks and ruin it for everybody else. We see it all the time in California, and obviously it's happening everywhere else too.
It is, but at the same time, I've put 2,000 miles on a machine in the last year and a half looking for that. The evidence of the people leaving the route, leaving the trash, leaving those disturbances, and I've found very little of it.
Oh, that's awesome to
hear.
hear.
There are some high traffic areas that you might see some of that. You might see some trail braiding, and that's where we want to see the management solutions and work with the BLM to fix it. But I think it's an overstated problem.
Oh, okay.
And I also don't think these roads are a public benefit. They're a public good. And we don't shut down our other roads that are a public good because some people are behaving irresponsibly. Right. We're not closing freeways.
No,
I was going to say, have you seen the trash on the freeway?
We will prosecute those who behave irresponsibly when we catch them. We'll create fines. We'll create enforcement mechanisms. But for the most part, I see just a lot of responsible use out in these areas. And we need to be celebrating that and not be perpetuating a narrative, which I think is in some cases at best overstated and at worst a false narrative, that there is explosion of irresponsible use. Most people want to do it the right way.
Yeah, you talked about responsible use, Ben, and it reminds me of the woman that we met on the way to 7 Mile Rim. We met a woman who was in like a little camper trailer, and she was there mining. She had a mining claim. And she was just out there looking for, I forget what type of rock it was.
Agate.
Yeah, agate.
Petrified wood, and she had a mining claim to be collecting it.
Yeah.
And the BLM legally can't close a route that's the primary access to a mining claim. So we want all the mining claim owners to be aware of the process. And she had no idea.
She had no idea. Yeah.
They're legally required to notify those claim owners, and I don't think that's happened in this plan. And so be a problem if I find out that's true, and I'm researching it right now.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea about that.
Yeah, we were talking about, why would they close this, this and this and this, and Ben was like, or it might be illegal. Like, yeah, maybe it is.
We need to find some mining claims.
In that case, that closure would be an illegal closure.
Yeah,
and
that
we'd have strong grounding to challenge that in court if we had that mining claim owner as a witness. And that's where, when I say I want the word out there, I don't want people just going to the BLM and making a comment through their site when they can use that opportunity to connect to us.
Yeah.
Let us know their story so we can determine if what their use of this landscape is legally relevant to a challenge, because we have to be laying the groundwork for that right now.
Well, I mean, that opens or requires me to ask another question. I mean, thinking about how you're getting the word out. I mean, obviously you're using social media, you're using modern techniques like podcasts and whatnot. I mean, going old school, because you're talking to older people that probably don't do Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. Are you getting out into the newspapers? I mean, it sounds like you're in the field, actually driving around talking to these people, but I mean, talking to magazines and newspapers and the old school, Channel 5 News or whatever, I mean, is that?
Well, actually,
a TV star. Why don't you tell them what we did our day?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of At Your Leisure TV. I think they're on. Yeah.
ABC4 in Utah, but they also are on a lot of the cable and like they reach
YouTube.
I think people as their audience broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah. So we met with them. Was it Friday evening? Yeah, Friday evening. And they did an interview with Ben, and then they interviewed me as well as kind of like the storyteller part of it. And yeah, that's supposed to air Saturday, right, Ben? Is when it's supposed to come out.
Yeah, that's going to be one of their main segments on this Saturday's show. And so we'll be getting word out to their audience.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll reach a lot of people.
I was on the local radio yesterday in Moab.
Mm-hmm.
I do have an op-ed ready that will submit to some papers. But most importantly is just if I see that the links are all going viral in all the groups, we need to keep that up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our email lists. We'll be sending out a direct mail piece to our members here soon. And we talk a lot about this plan in that direct mail piece that's going out. So we're doing everything we can. Like, this is prime time for us. We want all our members to be engaged in this fight. Chris, you said it's your bucket list to come to Moab?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We actually have a sweepstakes right now on TapCap, where if you make a small donation, you could be able to win a trip to Moab.
Okay.
There you go.
All expenses paid, a $2,000 trip.
Well, I'm on your
free Jeep rentals or ATV rentals or tours, jet boat tours. We have partnered with all the local outfitters because we're helping them with some of the problems they've had with the local government. And this is a way we're going to build a legal war chest to keep these things open.
Well, I'm on the website right now, so you'll definitely be getting a new member here pretty quick, and I'll be signing up for that. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but let us send you the link to the sweepstakes because that's a separate link. And we can, I think, with this show, I know with the podcast, you can include some links in the show description,
the show notes,
comment form, the sweepstakes form. We want everybody engaged. And if you haven't been to Moab, we would love for somebody who's never been to win the sweepstakes and get to see it the first time.
Yes, it's beautiful. You have to go.
For years, and back there again, I'm like, it reminded me of why we're fighting for this area. I mean, our kids, we found this little amphitheater on a little road that was a spur. It's probably one that says dead end. They're kind of the deal, deterring people from going there. And it was the best part of the trip. Our kids are out there climbing on these big boulders, and they come back to the side by side. These little girls like, this is like the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what life's all about, kids. You better enjoy it before you give up.
Well said.
Well, for sure. I mean, it's. I see pictures of the area, and it looks beautiful to me. And I'm the type of person that loves to be where nobody else is. I'm not a huge people person, which was surprising. I'm on a podcast, but I talk to lots of people. But being out in the middle of nowhere is definitely one of my favorite places to be, wherever it is, whether it's in the High Sierra or wherever it is. But definitely want to make it to Moab. I've heard so many stories about the trails. They're mild to wild, and of course, I want to make sure I can wheel on those trails when I do get out there. So this is a big concern. Don't come during
EJS then.
No, that's not my idea of a blast.
If you want to be alone, don't come during EJS week.
Absolutely. So, just real quick, I know I kind of was doing some research before we started the show, and you're the organization that's fighting against you to shut these places down. Man, it seems like all these groups, these anti-off-road groups, seem to be extraordinarily well funded. What's your answer to that? I mean, this grassroots stuff, but I mean, man, I looked at their financials. They got a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, the SUA is actually backed by a Swiss billionaire.
I was
So
going
they'll
to
never
ask. Yeah.
run out of money. He's like busy bailing out Russian oligarchs right now. He's buying the soccer teams from Roman Abramovich after he got sanctioned in the recent months. So they've got deep pockets. But my answer to that is, if we acted as big as we are as an industry and as a user group, they would be really small despite their funding. If you look at the economics of outdoor recreation, the Bureau of Economic Analysis does studies on this, and outdoor recreation is massive. It's growing, it's exploding.
Absolutely.
The first biggest is boating, motorboating and boating and fishing. Second biggest is RV and camping in vehicle-based camping, which this plan will shut down dozens, if not hundreds, of some of the best dispersed campsites on the planet.
Yes.
There are sites where we drove in and we're like, oh, there's a marked site. They actually put up signs. There's like you know how they paint the white lines on the sandstone to let you know where the route
Right.
is?
Yeah.
Like, they have developed this area and they're going to close the route that leads to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
They spent the time making the signs, painting the lines on the rocks, and then they're just going to give it all up.
And these are campsites that take you out to the edges of these cliffs that overlook these mesas and canyons, and you can see for miles and watch the thunderstorms and the animals, the wildlife, the sparrows. They are phenomenal spots. And if you've not camped on a canyon in Moab, you just haven't lived yet, and they're going to close it if the dispersed camping crowd doesn't show up and fight. Number 3 is hunting. Number 4 is ATV and motorized off-road recreation. Number 5 is, and that includes dirt bike. Number 5 is snow, and that includes skiing and snowmobiling together. And so if you look economically, the top 5 industries that lead outdoor recreation, and any one of those, like take number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and it is bigger than all the other forms of outdoor recreation combined.
Wow.
And so we are bigger than anybody out there advocating in the public land space. Our users aren't as organized as they need to be. I mean, BRC should have millions of members that support this movement. And if we had that strong of a collective voice and that kind of a funding base, the people are there, the populist energy is there, the stories are there. Every person we met didn't want those roads closed. SUA can't go out in this landscape and go up to that couple camping and say, don't you think we should close your campsite? They would lose support if they had to go be honest about what they're actually trying to do.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that I think tilt in our favor if we'll actually take advantage of them.
Well, I mean, so going back to one of the things that they said in their mission statement regarding this area, you know, they want to make it quiet, you know, and peaceful. I mean, most vehicles are pretty quiet. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say about the guys in their side-by-sides with the big speakers racing around like crazy people sometimes. But I mean, you got your overlander driving around in his minivan or Sprinter van. I mean, that thing is going to be just creeping along quietly, and they're just they're doing the same thing. But they're just driving to this place to be at peace with nature, you know, and you know, I'm sure they're not sitting up there on this bluff with their big subwoofer speakers going, you know, blasting out there and throwing up neon lights and having a rave. I mean, they're out there for the same thing, but maybe they're just not able to hike out there. They're physically disabled. They might be handicapped or whatever. And they need that motorized access to get out to these areas. And that to me is it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Discrimination.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we do have a section of our, like the comment we have to submit to the BLM. We actually do have a paragraph in there about the disabled access discrimination. President Biden, on his first day in office, issued an executive order to kind of mandating the federal government to find out if there's any places where where the policy is creating inequity. And it was mostly designed to reduce inequity related to race in the federal government, but it also included those with disabilities. And So the Department of Interior created an equity action plan, is what it's called. And they actually recognize in that equity action plan, because of our advocacy and other folks we were working with, that loss of motorized access does create a barrier of access to those with disabilities. And that's the first time we've been able to get them to acknowledge that in something that is a formal planning document. And we're emphasizing that. We want to see them follow that equity action plan and recognize that those who have a mobility impairment of any kind have as much of a right to be in this landscape as those who are able-bodied.
Yeah.
And that's an exploding group of users. You have a lot of folks who are aging into a disability that they didn't have earlier on in their life. That's turning into a big voting block. That's turning into an economic powerhouse. And they need to make their voices heard. We've created a project on BRC's website called Operation Accessible, which is basically our landing page for if you care about this disability access issue, we need your voice added to ours.
Oh, I'll say something.
So, yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of it, and I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, is the whole disabled people, special needs, all this stuff, and we've seen this over the years. You know, it's like we get out to some pretty spectacular places in our rigs. You know, we're referring to off-roading right now, but I mean, yes, we could hike out there. You know, it'd take a heck of a long time, and maybe I don't have that much vacation time or whatever. But with the disabled kids, you know, and veterans and everything that now have means to get out to these places, and if you shut down motorized access, there is no way they will ever get to see some of these beautiful places in the United States. And that is a huge point. But how do we get that word out there? So, I mean, it sounds like, Ben, you know, you throw out the rally cry and everybody's like, yeah, I don't want to lose my camp spot. I don't want to lose this trail. I don't want to lose, you know, Golden Spike. My grandfather did that trail, you know, and I want to see my son do that trail or whatever. So what is that mode, or how do you get people excited about just telling their story? Because it sounds like, one, I mean, just filling out the form is better than nothing. The generic form to get your word there. But, you know, what does it take to get, and how do people get their word out there of telling their story, and why that's important to not close that particular campsite, trail, whatever it may be?
Yep. So on the page where we have the form, we also have a link to the most accurate map.
Okay.
It was a map that was uploaded by a friend of mine. His name's Patrick McKay, and he got the GIS files from the BLM, and that's the most accurate representation of what the closures actually will be. Like, they've published some PDFs, and we found there are discrepancies between those published PDFs and what's actually in the GIS file. And so you want to look at the GIS file, and that's the first step. Go look at the routes they want to close, and you'll find if they're red, or I believe green means closed to be administrative use only, which means they might let a rancher use it, or just the BLM or the state staff, but they won't let the public use it. So if it's red or green, your alarm bell should be going off if that's a trail you recognize. And this is Gold Bar Rim, which is up on the Poison Spider Mesa. This is Rusty Nail. 7 Mile Rims had some closures that we were looking at.
Joe Canyon.
Joe Canyon. I think Patrick looked at it, and he has assessed that a third of the Jeep Safari trails could potentially be closed if they choose the most restrictive option. And so there's a really good chance, if you've wheeled in Moab or you've explored this Moab area, you'll find a trail on there that you'll say, that's one of my trails. Yeah. There's no way that's what Chelsey's reaction was. He's like, there's no way this is one of the trails they're closing.
Yeah, no way.
And,
so you talked about... Go ahead.
Our form you can customize.
Okay.
And so you can add in a paragraph that says, I've looked at the map. I've noticed that this trail and this trail and this trail are marked in red on some of the alternatives. And I'm strongly opposed to you closing that trail. This is my history of how I've used it. This is why it's valuable to me. And if that's all you did, you've now gone from like D+ work to like A- work.
Okay. So I'm glad you said that, because that's good. It's like, you know, doing the minimum, and it's like everybody, you know, it's like you get into politics, and this is all politics, right? Obviously. And it's, some people just don't want to deal with it. They're just like, I want my trail open. I'll give you $100, keep my trail open type of thing, right? Whatever their easy out is. But we do need that voice. I'm just trying to underscore that it is important from your standpoint, the Blue Ribbon standpoint, that you need these people to fill out that form and customize it to get right.
That's our untapped strength right now.
Okay,
that's how we've been playing.
Yeah.
So to go
we're
back,
the ones out there. We didn't see anybody hiking out there.
Exactly, and
it was our people.
Go back to what Chris was saying is like, the Swiss billionaires throwing all this money at this, environmental deal, but we have a greater force. Our army is there. We just need to organize it. We need to get those people to speak up and throw a few dollars at it or whatever is needed to make this happen. It's not like, we're scraping the bottom here. No, we got a ton of resources.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think another angle, and I'm sure you're addressing it or talking about it, is to think about the economic impact to the region. Moab, Utah downtown. Obviously they make a ton of dough when EJS is there and all the other events that go on. I know that they've got the Toyota event that happens later in the year or whatever. But if a lot of those trails are shut down, how's that going to economically impact the town of Moab and all the surrounding communities? That's got to be massive. And those shop owners and restaurateurs and barkeepers and whatnot have got to have a voice.
Oh, yeah. Well, the sweepstakes that we're doing right now in Moab, we have a lot of sponsors for that. And there's a lot of people that have like rental companies, that are really worried about this.
Sure.
Yeah, and we've worked a lot with the local government in Moab, and I wish I could say we had a better partner in the local government, but right now they're the ones who wrote a comment to the BLM telling the BLM that the wilderness SUA alternative that they had developed as part of this plan, the court required the BLM to produce a plan for SUA and then produce another alternative that kind of keeps more of it open. And Grant County and Moab said, your SUA plan is not restrictive enough. And they asked them to close more. And the elected leaders seem to think that they can make these decisions and that the economic impact won't, if they kill that won't trickle into some sort of an electoral change in the politics. And that's a risk they're taking. They are working on a public land bill that would turn most of this into either a national conservation area or wilderness, which is what SUA wants, which is why they have to close the roads. You can't create a congressionally designated wilderness if you have an area with more than 5,000 contiguous acres with a road in it. And so they can't designate wilderness unless they can launder the roads out of the system. Oh. And so that's why they get so involved in this travel planning process, and they scapegoat the side-by-sides or whoever.
Sure.
But it's really about they can't create their wilderness if the roads are there. And that's why we like to point out that narrative is false. There just wasn't anybody out there with their speakers and music blasting around the trails when we were out there. And we were on popular trails. But they need that narrative to paint the public image that there is this scourge and there's this problem. And you know what? When I did my first appeal and I went toe-to-toe in court with SUA, I expected to read this big legal brief about the scourge of side-by-sides and the problems with this off-roading and people leaving the trail. And I got 20 pages in, and they finally got to the punchline, and they said the BLM didn't take a hard enough look at the people who were camping on the side of the road. That was the disturbance they weren't willing to tolerate, and they were going to take the BLM to court over. And I'm like, I've been in that area. Do you know who's camping on the side of the road? It's people in Subaru Outbacks with Protect Wild Utah SUA stickers in their
right.
Like they're hurt. And they don't seem to think that'll eventually create problems for them. And that's Grand County's attitude, is they'll just want to turn it into wilderness and then go get federal handouts and let the feds give them money to pay for it all. And I'm like, we built you a money printing machine with one of the best outdoor recreation tourism economies on the planet, and you won't just let it work.
Wow.
And so that's a local project. I mean, we've definitely challenged some of the local government nonsense in Moab, but it's trickling down into these federal policies. They're using that local government status to influence the BLM. They want to put curfew restrictions on Hell's Revenge and Fins and Things and some of those trails. They were requesting a buffer zone be created around the Green River based on some designations that happened in the Dingle Act, but the Dingle Act said they can't do that legally. Like, there's actually congressional statute that says you can't. They're still trying, and that would end up closing the Mineral Bottom Airstrip, which, Chelsey, who did we run into at the Mineral Bottom Airstrip?
Yeah, story time. So, yeah, we're driving down just along the Green River there, and, Ben's cruising along on his little side-by-side, and I'm like, I just saw an airplane. And he's like, did you really? I'm like, I legit just saw an airplane. So we pull off on this little trail, and sure enough, there's a dirt like runway right in the middle next to the Green River. And we met a gentleman and his son who were setting up camp for the night. They had just landed. They were going to enjoy their time out in Moab with nobody around, peace and quiet. And awesome. we talked to him too about it, and he had no idea. No idea.
And so the Backcountry Pilots Association has often worked with BRC, and I bring up that story just to show you that this isn't
not just
about one.
Yeah. It's airplanes. It's everything.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
We're there kind of planting the flag that says we want everybody to have access.
Yeah.
Well, it's public land. People should be able to use it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean,
so define Sioux, because it's not an Indian tribe in Moab.
It's Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Because I just know we learned about it here just recently, and it sounds like an Indian tribe to me, and we keep referring to it. I just want to make sure our listeners understand who we're up against here.
Yeah, it was them, and they were partnered with the Wilderness Society on the legal action. So it's definitely the groups that are really strongly focused on creating wilderness. I mean, you definitely have different flavors of environmental groups, but the ones who want to create wilderness, this is a message that I don't think we can get out there enough, is that most of the general public thinks of wilderness and they think of the outdoors. Or they think of the backcountry. I mean, even when the Ford Bronco came out with their new model of the Ford Bronco, they had all their advertising like, get out in the wilderness. I'm like, you can't drive a Ford Bronco in the wilderness.
Correct.
And so we use that term, and legally it means you're not there. You don't get to go there. Unless you can get there on your own 2 feet, you're not allowed in this area. Across the river is the Labyrinth Canyon Wilderness, and I've gone over there to do some field work, and they don't even allow hang gliders in the wilderness. And so it's a really restrictive land use designation, and no one who enjoys outdoor recreation and multiple use outdoor recreation should ever support anything that's wilderness. That is the absolute worst form of a public land designation, and it just means that people who can walk are the only ones who get to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it already that we'd be thinking about creating any more of it at this point.
Yeah.
Just seems like a complete contradiction in where things are headed. I mean, the center of gravity in the public land system is shifting to outdoor recreation and alternative energy. Those will be the driving forces of this system for the next 20 to 30 years. And we need to be expanding outdoor recreation use. We need to be finding ways to accommodate and enhance the user experiences and manage it, not just close it. When you close it, you concentrate people into smaller and smaller areas, which concentrates the impact. And in Colorado, they were actually looking at dispersed camping closures, and they hired some PR consulting firm to come up with their plan, and they called it concentration camping.
Oh, no.
Oh, that sounds great. Sign me up.
Sounds so fun.
Wow. Holy back 1940s.
But that's my point.
Is thinking about that too. I mean, what exploded, outdoor camping and outdoor recreation was, COVID. I mean, COVID's for all intents and purposes in my mind over, and I think a lot of people, but I mean, we were hearing stories over and over and over again during the early days of COVID when everything was shut down and the pandemic was raging about people going, buying. You couldn't get a tent, you couldn't get a cooler. You go to Costco, everything was sold out. You go to different various outdoor stores, and it's like, nope, everything's sold out. People were racing up to the mountains to recreate, and of course, a lot of we heard a lot of stories and saw a lot of stuff on Facebook about these established campgrounds where people were going in, that some were closed, people were cutting chains, people were dumping their garbage and camping, and leaving all their garbage when they leave. And obviously that left a really gave us a black eye, as far as the outdoor community. But I think a lot of people have learned from that, and it's getting better. But at the same time, there's still groups like SUA and Sierra Club and CCC and whatnot, and that are absolutely adamant about closing these public lands and from our use or from motorized use. And they just, like I said earlier in the show, they want to be able to go out there with their backpacks and their little 1 or 2 man tents and whatever, and their dehydrated food, and call it good.
Yeah. Except they don't. I never see them out there.
It's education, right? I mean, we got to get these people educated. It's like, I went to the school of hard knocks on how to survive out in the, on these trails and stuff. And it's like, but now there's so much information out there that's readily accessible, YouTube and stuff. And you got to filter through it, but most of it's pretty damn good and educational. And it's like, how do we get the word out of people recreating responsibility so they're not putting ammo into the SUA or any of these other places that are trying to shut us down, organizations. And how do we get our word out there, So that's where the Blue Ribbon Coalition comes in. You guys provide a platform to get the end user to say, hey, I've been coming out here for X amount of years and, all these stories. So, and your website is, very straightforward and clean, but, and we'll have some links in here, but so it's not just the Moab issue. There's several issues. You go onto the website that's going on across the United States. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what I mean, some of the key points, takeaways, Ben, would you say that people need to include, or what hits a home run, gets that D- to an A+.
To an A+ is if you have time to go to Moab in the next 2 weeks before the October 7th deadline. And we're going to ask for an extension on that just because of some of the problems we found in the plan. It's up to the BLM's discretion whether they want to grant that. But I think having more time would be good. This is such a popular area. It'd be give the public more time. But if you can plan a trip to Moab with some intention and look up some of those trails and say, that's a trail I haven't been on. It's red. I should go see what that is to help Blue Ribbon Coalition and everybody else, and go do your own field work. Just take some pictures of it. Let us know what the condition of the trail is. What's the reason for that trail to be there? Because they all have a reason to be there. And sometimes they'll go to a campsite. Sometimes they'll go to a scenic overlook. It might be an obstacle, like a different level of challenge to let people go experience different forms of off-roading or whatnot. Might be for administrative. It might be for a rancher to go to his allotment. But most ranchers I talk to, as long as you're responsible and respectful, they don't care if the public uses their routes. The miners actually like the public using their routes. You just can't interfere with their claim, and you can't remove minerals from those claims. So you should be educated about that issue, because the miners have a legal property right basis to be there. Great allies. We don't want to alienate them and get them to not want to work with us. And I work a lot with the small miners for that reason. So the A+ work would be as if you picked a trail that nobody knows about and went and kind of adopted a trail and gave it some love. Let us know what you found. Let the BLM know what you found. And that would be the A+ work. And so not everybody's going to have the wherewithal to do that. But if you are listening to me and you can do that, that's where we really close the gap. Other things we always kind of pitch with this, as I said, this was part of a bigger fight over 10,000 miles of roads and trails in Utah. Man. So we created what's called the 10,000 Plus Project, where we will update you on all of these fights. This is the San Rafael Swell, the San Rafael Desert, the Henry Mountains, 3 areas in Moab, and then all the riding areas down by Kanab that aren't already a national monument. This is a lot of popular riding areas in Utah. And this is a legal fight. Like we have to engage lawyers on this on a regular basis. It's not your typical lawsuit where they're like, give us 6 figures and we'll go fight this. But it's every few months we need to file an appeal or a letter or request an extension. And so we've asked people to join the 10,000 plus project for $5 a month. Everybody, if you can afford a built out Jeep, you can afford $5 a month.
Right.
Exactly.
And if I had thousands of people spending $5 a month, I would have all the legal resources I need to never have to worry about, can we pay the attorney bill?
And that's a great point. And it's like, I know, I was educated about this being in a four-wheel drive club a long time ago. So I was aware of these different associations, but the new user that's coming in and buying these very capable off-road vehicles, whether it be a side-by-side or a Jeep or a new Bronco now, that are getting, you can get into some serious backcountry travel. They don't know. They just, man, we need to get with these manufacturers and stuff and say, hey, here's your BlueRibbon Coalition, membership packet, your first year's, or your first 6 months free, whatever. And then, you're going to be automatically billed or whatever. It needs to be built in, and we need to somehow get people to, if people will drop $5 on a latte in a second, especially JL Jeep owners. But anyways, I had to get our tickets. Oh, you see, you don't listen to the podcast, Chelsey. We have a guy, we have Rodney on our podcast that we call it the JL latte maker. It's ultra plush JL. It's just because we're jealous. That's all.
You guys are just jealous. That's all it is.
So, yeah, it's exactly it. It's jealousy will get us everywhere. But anyways, welcome to the Wheelie Wine and Whiskey podcast, Chelsey.
Thanks, glad to be here.
But no, seriously, I mean, we spend so much money to go slow off road. I mean, $5, $10, $15, $20 a month is absolutely nothing, and it's just make that happen. And I guess if people really realize that money is so impactful. It's getting that word out there that it is. Mm-hmm. It helps a ton. It's not going into this, farce account that, and we're so jaded in California because we don't know where half our money's going. And I can understand that.
We don't know where a quarter of our money's going.
Yeah, that too.
I can tell you we do run a tight ship. Our financials are all transparent. We publish our 990 every year. We're audited. And we're very judicious in how we use the resources. If I hire someone like Chelsey, it's because I know if I hire her, she can help me grow this and bring more people in, and so that we have a bigger platform. And it's an investment in building this community and to building this advocacy work so that it's a strong, formidable presence. We've worked hard with some good attorneys to maintain our presence in the court system. I mean, just a month ago, we had one of the top DC law firms help us do a challenge to the Abuse of the Antiquities Act, and we're challenging the monument expansions in Utah. And if you look at that, you'll see we had a rancher as one of our plaintiffs, we had a miner, we had a Native American woman who had some private property and holdings in the monument, and then we were there as the voice of the off-road and outdoor recreation users of these monuments. And it was a really strong coalition of folks in a very strong case. We want to see the Supreme Court speak to the Abuse of the Antiquities Act, and we sense they have an appetite to do that. And so we're doing a lot with a little, and we're proud of our work. We did, to your point about making it automatic, we do have, like all the off-road businesses in Moab, those outfitters and guides, they do a $5 trail protection surcharge that they donate to our Moab Legal Fund. Perfect. And man, if we had like I said, if we acted as big as we are and channeled those resources into these organizations and the clubs, and we like the ecosystem of the small clubs, and then feeding that into the umbrella organizations like BRC and Tread Lightly and others, we have all the potential to be one of the strongest voices in public land policy. But we need everybody to show up and play their little part. And if everybody shows up and plays a small part, we will be a really big force to be reckoned with.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why we're here too. And that's why I contacted you guys. I know, the off-roading community is strong in people and in heart. So
yeah, very well said. Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. We're true believers, and we certainly don't want to see any of this stuff get shut down because some people have been, like you said earlier, some people have been recreating on it for years and years and years, and some of us are waiting for our chance to go out there and recreate for the first time.
Yeah.
And I personally don't want that to be denied, for me to be denied.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
I've had
absolutely.
several people message me and say, like, tell me more about this because I've never been to Moab and I was supposed to go next year. And if this trail is going to be closed, I'm going to be really mad. And so I was like, go do your part, go submit your comment. Tell them that you haven't been there. You want to go, and, for future generations as well.
Yeah, actually saying you have plans to go is an important legal phrase.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
That's true. And you can back that up in a signed witness declaration. Then you need to add that into your comment. You need to customize it and let the BLM know that is your plans and that's the truth. And they need to hear from you.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to challenge all of our listeners to speak up, let their voices be heard. Make sure you get out and go to the Blue Ribbon Coalition's website, which is sharetrails.org, and find your way into the area where you need to have your voice heard and donate and whatnot and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, there's a good chance we're probably working on issues in your area too. I mean, we've talked a lot about Moab today and some of the Utah things, and there's a lot going on in Utah. So there is a lot of focus on Utah, but Utah was actually of the number of actions we've engaged on in other states, Utah's fourth. California was actually number one. Oregon was 2. Idaho was number 3. Utah was number 4. And then I think we get into like Arizona, Nevada, Montana. I mean, we're definitely really focused on these western states where we have a lot of public land, but we've done a lot of camping plans and forest plans in Georgia, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. I mean, we are a national organization and we watch all of this and try and get involved wherever we can.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear.
There's the other aspect too, is, since doing this podcast and it's great. We get over the years meeting all these different people in four-wheeling, but then, now we have this conduit that we get to meet people across the United States, across the world for that matter.
Absolutely.
And it I'm very fortunate and grateful that I did grow up in California, as bad as things have gotten now. But anyways, that's just because I've been here for 50 years. But
50.
How much land and being that we do have public land, because I mean, there's places that do not have public land. You have to go to some private land, pay a fee to go four-wheeling on 6 miles of trails, and we have thousands and thousands of acres that we can go recreate on, go camping. People can fly their planes in, apparently, next to the Green River. I mean, that's super cool.
That's super cool.
I mean, it's kind of foreign to some of these other people that oh my gosh, you even have that opportunity to do this. So just underscoring how, important it is to keep this that way, that it is publicly accessible, keeping public lands open to the public.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what we're doing every day.
Every day. That is fighting the good fight, as I say.
Yeah.
So what else did we miss anything? We're going to have some show notes, some links to obviously the Blue Ribbon Coalition and this particular fight here in Moab, and then how they can get involved, how they can listeners can get their voice heard, and going from, I guess one of the big takeaways for me, because I've done it, everybody's busy, whatever. And it's like, hey, fill out this form, sign this, generic letter to your voice be heard. Well, that's good. You made an effort and your voice is heard, but it carries way more weight if you do personalize that letter, is my takeaway that I'm getting from this.
Yeah. It's the why.
Mm-hmm.
The BLM wants this to be about soil crust and mountain goats, because they have all their cadres of scientists and people they could rely on and make the decision, this really sanitized decision of where we're just protecting this soil crust.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not the story of what's happening. In Canada, you have doctors who are prescribing outdoor recreation as a form of mental health treatment. You have people that are going outdoors to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
You have the disabled access issue is important. You have everybody, there was a father and son in their airplane. There is a wide there. That is a bond that's being strengthened and built, and that is priceless. Money can't buy that. Soil crust can't compare to it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And if it actually was destroying the entire landscape, then maybe we'd need to reconsider this, but it's not.
No.
And the impacts truly are minimal when we go put our boots on the ground and do the ground truthing and field work. 99.9% of this land is untrammeled, untouched.
Yep.
There for the wildlife and the vegetation and the soil and everything else is cared for. And then you have all these protected areas surrounding it. It's okay to let people access 1% of their public land and find their own unique reason for being there.
Hell yeah.
And every person we met had their own story for being there. You've been there. You have your own reason why. If you make that the emphasis to the BLM, it makes it emotional. It turns it into a really hard decision where they're hurting people. This is a violent thing that'll hurt people if they go through with these restrictive plans, and they need to hear that from you.
Right.
And if we make it about that, it becomes a really tough decision. It gives us a really strong legal foundation to challenge this, which we're willing and ready to do based on the experiences I've had on these other management plans. We have to be ready to go the distance, and we are.
Excellent.
We don't want to give up a single mile of road and trail in this area if we can avoid it.
Right.
And the more voices we have giving us backup and ammo and reasons for why, it'll just make us that much stronger. And so that's why we want you using our forum. That's why we want to do this together with you. If you send your information straight to the BLM and don't use it to bolster what BRC or and if there's another organization that you like better that's doing this, work with them, but don't make your voice as effective as you possibly can.
Well, it's strength in numbers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that terminology, ground truthing. So you're going out there and actually boots on the ground, right, and making sure, okay, this trail, and then get to see it and witness it yourself, the beauty or whatever the end destination is to get to an obstacle or whatever it may be.
I think that your visual proof or seeing for yourself with your own eyes that the land's not being damaged or polluted, that is reassuring to me and gives me a warm fuzzy feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, because as we trail ride, and I know I haven't trail ridden as much as I want to in the last couple of years, but I have done a fair amount of wheeling, and that I have come across, garbage that I've stopped and gotten out of the rig to pick up, and it frustrates me, and I want all of the, my people like me and us to do the same thing, be the responsible party. And, if they come across somebody that's not behaving properly, and they're not violent, to try to, convince them that they need to take their garbage out with them and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. So, this is just scraping the surface, but I appreciate your time and getting this word out. We definitely can continue to beat this drum and get you guys back on it. Any other issues that arise.
Absolutely.
We've got the power of the podcast here. So
we will be a guest anytime, and there's always a portfolio of work that we're heavily engaged in. And so anytime you want to talk about it,
we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person at Trail Hero coming up here in just a few week and a half.
Yeah.
That'd be too close. Way too close.
We will be announcing the winner of the Moab sweepstakes. So,
okay, that's right. Exactly.
Well, I'm on that page right now. I'm going to enter it. So just
that'll be fantastic. God, if Chris wins, that'll be
win.
great.
23 days left. So
I think we're down to like 10 or 11 though. So
I think today's 10 days. 10 days left.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's not refreshing. It says 23.
Let's make sure Chris has the right link. We'll make sure that you guys have it to put in the show notes.
Absolutely.
The clock's ticking, and we want everybody to take their shot at coming to Moab. But all that money is going straight to the legal fund to fight these.
Fantastic.
And it's something we've just started doing at BRC to do these sweepstakes. We actually have 2 or 3 lined up now that will come after this one. So hopefully that helps create a fun way for people to also get involved and connected and aware of what we're doing. And we're just doing everything we can. I mean, we just want I honestly think if we get the movement mobilized, we will be the biggest thing in the room.
Well, rally the troops. Absolutely.
It is. And it's just education, right? Just making people aware. And it's like, I mean, most people are just doing their thing and yeah, they hear about it, but it's like, oh, well, my voice isn't going to count. Well, no, it is. And we need you to speak up, especially if you are an off-road enthusiast or you plan on it, going there. I mean, Moab's one of those iconic places if you're into off-roading. And, just like Chris, he's never been there and he doesn't know what he's missing. But when he goes there, he's going to go like, why
exactly.
haven't I why haven't I been there before? Right? Exactly. So, life happens and, got responsibilities, but you gotta go out there and recreate. And I think it goes back to what Ben said earlier. I mean, it's like, that example with the father-son flying in on a plane. I mean, these are the stories. This is life. This is why we work. This is why we do what we do. This is why we bought, in our case, off-road vehicles to get out to these areas and get away from, I mean, this is, honestly, it keeps me moving forward because if I didn't have something to look forward to, I would not be stable.
Me too.
So off-roading, and you made that,
trail
right?
Therapy.
And
trail
you made
therapy
that
is real.
Trail therapy, off-road therapy,
mountain
therapy. We call it mountain therapy on the podcast. It is so true, and especially in this current day and age where there's so much coming at you. It's like, you got to take those breaks. You got to do that to just keep your sanity. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're lying on your deathbed. What did you do with your life? Where did you go? What did you see? Who were the people that you interacted with and family and friends and stuff? It's like,
I wish I worked more.
It really,
I wish I never went to Moab.
And that's Chris's motto. That is exactly Chris's motto. I don't want to go to Moab and I want to work more. And Chris is nailing it.
Not. That's not what I say.
But anyways, hey, good stuff. It's a very important topic. I'm so glad that you reached out, Chelsey, and thank you for your time, Ben. I know you got a meeting you've got to get to here again, fighting the good fight. So good luck with that. You're in Eastern Sierras, so and talking about.
We're gonna go see what they've got cooked up at the Inyo National Forest snowmobile plan.
See, so, and I'm a snowmobiler as well, so I'm just anything off road.
Well, you'll have to come meet me in Mammoth Lakes this winter and come show me around.
Okay, sounds good. That's definitely would love to do that.
Only thing Jason doesn't do that we talked about today is flying an airplane.
No, but I wanted to. I wanted to become a
Ben
pilot.
might know some people.
I didn't have the financial resources. Okay.
Do you want to make any shout outs for your IGs or your, I know we're going to put all the links in the show notes, but do you have any last shout outs you want to make?
I mean, you can find us on any of the social media platforms under BlueRibbon Coalition. That's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter. So just look us up. We'd love the followers. I mean, you get on Instagram and you don't have 10,000 followers. They don't let you do links and stuff. And that's what we do is link. We need you to go to the link to come. So we want people to follow us just so that we can be more effective and reach more people and share our account with others.
We also have a new project we're working on called Boots on the Ground, which will be on YouTube. Keep an eye out for that.
You can send me the links on that, and or I'll look it up. Is it happening now, or is it something in the near future?
And
Chelsea's
editing the first video.
Oh, right on. So when do you think that's going to go live?
Oh gosh, I don't know, Ben. End of the week, maybe. Yesterday. Okay.
Yesterday.
So I'll be up tonight and editing that.
It's really
all right. Well, when that goes live, give me a heads up, and we'll do a shout out on the show and on the IG for that too.
We'll do.
Perfect.
Right on. Good. Well, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. We're super proud to be able to spread the word for you two and for Blue Ribbon Coalition.
Yeah, for sure. And listeners, you're charged with the duty of getting on board with Blue Ribbon Coalition and save your trails. And whether it be money and or a quick note, as you want to be an A+ student.
Right.
Let's get your
Don't
personal
fail.
experiences in there, right?
I'll even take mine, but I do want a few A+ in there.
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
All right. I'll see you.
All right.
All right. Welcome back to the Snail Trail Studio, out of the Studio R, the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey's Studio R. Yeah. So that was a really, really cool interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Ben and Chelsey.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason and Chris, for allowing us to share this episode. And thanks, Ben and Chelsey, for jumping online and talking about everything. You know, this is very necessary, very timely. There's a lot going on right now.
There is a lot going on right now. And, you know, we mentioned it a little bit in the past, but, you know, they're literally discussing shutting down Golden Spike.
Correct. Yeah.
Which has the Golden Crack on it. The obstacle, the Golden Crack, which is, other than Top of the World, probably the number 2 most iconic trail in Moab.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Hell's Gate might be up there.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Yeah.
But I mean, it's top 3.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Right.
You know, I don't know if Poison Spider's in that list, but I mean, Gold Rim Bar and Golden Spike and Poison Spider make up that trifecta.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just it's kind of crazy and kind of shocking that they're considering this.
Yes, 100%. So if they can take and shut down Golden Spike and Golden Crack, what's to stop them from shutting down any other trail in the country? If we can't stand up and stop this from happening to one of the most iconic trails in the country, we've failed as a group of hobbyists.
Yeah, I really like the way that Ben kind of talked about it when he was saying that as a group, as a, you know, outdoor enthusiasts, off-roaders, fishers, you know, RVers, all this group, if we unite, we are by far larger than any of these other companies out there.
Yep.
And we need to be able to figure out how to do that.
Yep. 100%. That was one of the big key takeaways I wanted to make sure that we touch on and kind of reiterate here is just how big the freaking off-road industry actually is. The outdoor recreation industry, I should say.
Yeah.
If we take, and what's crazy, and it just didn't even occur to me until I listened to that interview, was that this is not impacting just us as OHV motorized recreationalists.
No. Yeah, absolutely not.
It's impacting, like he said, they kind of made a joke about it one time. It's impacting the Subaru driver that's going out to set up a ground tent with a SUA Southern Utah Alliance bumper sticker on their car.
Or Ben, you know, this is going to affect the dude that flies in an airplane to a random spot.
Yeah.
You know, and sets up camp with his family.
This is impacting every single person: hikers, backpackers, horseback riders, mountain bikers, dirt bike riders. There's all these different groups, recreational groups, that are going to be really highly impacted if this goes through.
Yeah.
It's not just OHV motorized.
No, absolutely not. And we're going to add the links down in the description so that you guys can get over to sign those petition forms. We're going to add the one for BlueRibbon Coalition so that they have the ammo that they need to go after this. But I'm going to ask everybody out there to share this.
100%.
You know, because there's people out there, like they discussed, that have no idea this is going on. And the word needs to get out there to other groups. You know, like I can share it, but I'm primarily in the off-road 4x4 industry.
Yep.
So my reach only goes that far. But if anybody is listening to this that is in a van life community, or, you know, RVing, or, you
Earth roamers,
earth boating, I don't, you know,
oh my
like
God,
anything, fishing, you know, any of these industries, you really need to share this because this is going to impact everybody.
Yep. Horseback groups.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a ton of different groups out there that everybody's going to get hit by this really hard. So share it with somebody. If your lines cross over to one of those other groups, make sure people in that group knows about this.
Right.
This is crazy.
And you know, there's some certain ways to, you know, fill out those forms, and they have it listed on their website. But, you know, a lot of it comes down to, you know, where you were, when did you go there? and if you plan on going there in the future, right? So like maybe you have never been to Moab, but it's on your bucket list. You need to tell them that.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I've never been there, but I do want to go there someday. And if you close this down, it's going to, I'm not going to be coming into that area ever again.
If you have dreams of getting a picture with your rig on the Golden Crack, let them know that.
Yes.
That was one of the posts on Irate 4x4. I forget who it was, but he said essentially, this is pretty crazy stuff. I really want to go to Moab. I haven't been before, but I have plans to go next year. If this all shuts down before I'm there, that's going to suck. And I was like, it will suck.
Yeah.
You need to write in about that.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been to Moab, you need to write in about it. If you have been to Moab, you need to write in about it. If you've been on any of these trails, you need to write in, talk about your experience and how much that meant to you. We need to make this fight personal, and we all need to step up and do it. We have no excuse. Learning about how big the outdoor recreation industry is from Ben on this interview really was just like, it makes no sense as to why we should lose this fight.
No, absolutely not.
So we just need everybody to write in and share about this issue with everybody else.
Yeah. And if you've never been to Moab, they're doing a sweepstakes event going on.
Yeah, that was super cool.
And so it might be closed by the time this airs. I mean, it sounded like it was only a few days around that when the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey released their episode. So the closing date is the 29th, which is today.
Yeah.
Check it out. Go on and hit the link. Go down and find the Defend Your Ground, Blue Ribbon Coalition, the sweepstakes that are going on. See if it's still open. I don't think they might close it at the end of the day. It might be closed already, unfortunately. But, it's a full paid vacation to go to Moab.
Yep.
If you've never been before. So this is a great opportunity for those people that have never been to Moab that could win a free trip.
Yep. Yeah. And if you can't, for some reason, just Moab doesn't tickle your fancy and you're like, yeah, I'm not really going to go to Moab. I don't really want to go to Moab. Then consider giving $5 to Blue Ribbon Coalition, because if this happens, then the backers behind SUA, backers behind the Sierra Club, they're going to figure out what it took to make this happen. And they're going to make that happen in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And eventually it's going to come to your back door. It's going to happen. So please consider giving $5 if you're like, oh, I don't have anything to say to the BLM.
Yeah.
Give $5 to Blue Ribbon or Tread Lightly or whoever's fighting these fights, so that they can continue to fight the fights and keep it from coming to your backyard.
Absolutely. We've talked about it from our Pismo episodes, or Oceana Dune episodes, that what they're doing here is going to come across the country. And then it really, and then 6 months later, now we're hearing about it happen, over in Moab. And we've been talking about that for, since we interviewed Dan Mick, and it just seems like it spreads across the country one way or another, whether, somebody will find something positive and how to overturn something that's happening. And then they try to flood that across the nation to overturn a bunch of trails. But then somebody finds out how to close a bunch of trails, and then they turn that right around on us and close a bunch of trails. So
yeah,
we need to continue to support these people that are doing the fighting.
Yep. 100%. Check out all the links. We're going to have a bunch of resources down in the show notes for everybody. So check all that out. Educate yourself about what's going on. And please, please, please share this issue with anybody and everybody who does anything outdoor recreationally.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. That's all I got.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you to Wheeling Wine and Whiskey again for letting us share this, and for Blue Ribbon Coalition for everything you guys are doing.
Yep. And with that, my friends, keep crawling.
I got one for you.
Okay.
Did you hear about the weatherman that broke both arms and both legs?
I did not.
Yeah, he had 4 casts.
Okay. I don't know about you sometimes.